So this is a continuation of topics that we have already learned, but we're going to combine all those separate learnings into a single example. And of course, we will also learn some new things on the way. So we have a data set which has four projects in it. The segment is in column B, and we have different analysts who are working. In fact, let me remove the fourth one. Let's just work with three of these. So we have different analysts who are working on each one of these projects. The first one has three analysts, the second one has two analysts, and the third one has two analysts. I'm also going to make the numbers rounded so that our calculation works perfectly. Now, the question here is if you want to find out which analyst has been the best for you, it's very difficult because the three analysts are separated with a comma, so they're not written in multiple rows. So obviously the first thing that we want to do is to split into rows, and then we also want to commensurately do the recalculation so that the earning is also split between the three analysts. So here we are assuming that every analyst's contribution is the same. This means that Aaron, Adam and Alan are contributing 30,000 each. Adam and Alan are contributing 30 each, and in project number 3, Aaron and Alan are contributing 20,000 each. So let's send this data to Power Query. So there are a couple of ways in which we can approach this problem. Let's take a simple one. So what I want to do is to find out how many analysts are working on each one of the projects. To do this, I will first split my column by a delimiter. So let us split it into different rows. And that gives us an analyst in each one of the rows. In fact, let me just go back and change that. So we want to keep the comma as the delimiter. So split column by delimiter, advanced, and we don't want to choose the space, we want to choose the comma, and we get different names in each one of the rows. Okay, I've made another tiny mistake. Let me do that one final time. Split column by delimiter, we are choosing a comma and we are choosing advanced options and split into rows. Perfect. There are these extra leading spaces before some of these names. So on transform format, we can trim them. That looks great. Now the problem here is that I have 7 analysts who are there in 3 of the projects. The problem is that the earning has also been replicated. Now this should not be 90, 90, 90. It should be 30, 30, 30. This should be 30 and 30 and then 20 and 20. To do this, I will right click and duplicate my query. Now, when you duplicate, remember you're essentially creating a duplicate query. So every single step that you have is getting copied, right? Which is exactly what we want. It's like copying a sheet. Here we want to find out how many analysts have worked on each one of the projects. To do this, we will first remove segment and earning. We don't really require them. Let's remove these columns. In add column, no, in transform, we will select the first option, which is group by, and we select project name. We choose counting the number of rows and OK. And it tells us that there are 3 analysts in project A01, 2 in A02 and 2 in A03. Now these are the numbers that we want to come next to my earnings so that I can divide 90,000 by that number. For this, we will have to go back to home and then do a merge query, which means I want to merge table 1 with the duplicate that I created. And the common key here is project name and project name. So it creates a one-to-many relationship, which means that in the second table, every project is mentioned one unique time. But in the first table, projects are mentioned numerous times. When we do an OK, The entire table 1, 2 will be brought to table 1. So we expand. We already have the project name, so we don't need it again. We only need the count. And excellent, we get the count like this. For our understanding, let's just call this as the number of analysts. Great. Now we want to divide this by this. So add column, custom column. Let's call this earning per analyst, and this would be equal to the total earning divided by the number of analysts, and this would give us the number that we are interested in. We don't need these two numbers, so I can simply select and remove them. And that's it. You get your answer. So when we click on close and apply, or rather close and load, let me load it back to the same sheet. So let's load it back to my existing worksheet. For some reason, we are not getting that option for the existing worksheet. Not a problem. We'll put it on a new sheet. And we don't need this one, so I can delete this. We need this one, so I select the entire table and we can put it right next to our original data set, so it appears like this. And like we have been doing all along, the moment you add more records to your data set, you can simply right click and then refresh, and the data automatically gets refreshed. Let's do a continuation of this problem. Let's say we also wanted to find out who the top two analysts are. Right click, table, and then edit query. So table number 1 is now telling me the earning per analyst. We also need to find the top analyst, so I can right click and duplicate the query. And the only change we need to make is very simple. We will have to find out how much has every analyst earned overall. So we don't need the first two columns, so we can remove them. And like we did earlier, we want to group the analyst as per the earning. So transform group by. We want to choose our team analyst as the column. We want to call the new column total earning. And this would be the sum of earnings per analyst. This immediately tells us these are the total earnings for each of the 5 analysts. We can sort it in a descending order. We can also click on home, select keep rows, because remember we only want the first 2 rows, so we can say keep top rows. We want 2 rows to be taken. We press OK and voila, you get your top 2 analysts. Let's click on close and load. Of course, it will create a new sheet. Which is all right. We can simply select the table and then come back and then simply put it right next to our original table. So this time you notice it is telling us the earning per analyst. It is also telling us who our top 2 analysts are. So just so that you can see, let's make some changes here. So right now you notice that Aaron Bergman is 133,000. But let's say that Aaron has worked on another project. Let's say this is project A06. It's in the consumer segment and only Aaron Bergman has worked on it. Or let's say somebody else. So maybe we want to choose Adam Hart, right? And the earning has been very large. So maybe it's 100,000, or let's keep it as 120,000. So you notice the moment I refresh, we get an Adam Hart at the end. And also when I refresh the top 2 analysts table, it will now tell me that Adam Hart is number 1 at 180 and Aaron Bergman is number 2 at 133. So good example, we saw how we can split our values into multiple rows, create duplicate queries. And then because the client is only interested in getting these results, they don't really care about the process at the backend. All they know is that they can keep on adding more and more projects as time goes on. and they simply have to click on a refresh button, and the entire query will automatically get refreshed.